Edward X, the African contribution to civilization. Edward X is a native of Washington, D.C. He has his associate's degree in business administration. Edward X's passion is to see fellow black people free in a self-governing society. A lifelong wish of his is to gain freedom and independence. One of Edward X's role models is the Minister Louis Farrakhan, following the guidance and teachings of Minister Farrakhan by promoting his solution. Brother Edward X is a teacher at Deanwood Recreation, where he teaches Black Studies every Thursday. He also serves as Minister of Information in the Nation of Islam, D.C. Mosque. Today, Brother Edward X will be speaking about African contributions to civilization. Without further ado, I present to you Edward X.
We've been taught by the wise men and women that preceded us in this world life that we should begin everything in the name of our Creator. So we begin in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, bearing witness that regardless to land, label, or language, there is but one God. And we thank that one God. As a black man, I thank that one God for raising up the Honorable Elijah Muhammad to lead, teach, and guide black people in a way that we knew not. And I further bear witness and thank Allah for the man who continues to bring that message to us today, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And as a student in the ministry of the Nation of Islam, I would be remiss in my duties if I failed to thank the Mid-Atlantic Regional Minister, Minister Abdul Qadir Muhammad. And it is in their name that I greet you in the greeting words of peace. He said in Arabic, Assalamu alaikum. Hotep, Habar Ghani, Black Power, Free the Land, Praise the Lord. What's happening? It is indeed an honor, a privilege, and an esteemed opportunity to stand before you with a message that we believe that if spread among black people, it would change the quality of our lives in America and indeed throughout the world. As has been said, I'm Edward X. I'm the facilitator of Black Studies in Washington, D.C. and Northeast in the Deanwood Recreation Center, and I also serve as Minister of Information for the Mid-Atlantic Regional Mosque, Muhammad Mosque No. 4. So, our topic again is African contribution to civilization. Before we can delve into this topic, we have to deconstruct our minds. Black people in America, our minds have been saturated with Eurocentrism. So much so that if you call a black person an African, we'll argue. African? I'm not an African. He called me an African. I'm not with that African stuff, right? But that same person, if you saw him and say, "What's up, nigga?" they say, "Ain't nothing." So logically, we could be niggas. We don't debate it. We don't go back and forth over it. But illogically, we can't be African. So that only shows that something has happened to us. So in order to raise our consciousness, we have to tear down the false concepts that we hold as a people. For we as a people have been stripped of our name, our language, our culture, our religion, our history, our folkways, our mores, our norms, turned upside down and inside out. Look at our names: Johnson, Smith, Culpepper, O'Reilly, Underbrook, Darryl Strawberry Ice Cream with vanilla wafer cookies on it. We have European names. And if we are free indeed, we should have the names of our ancestors, which only shows that something has happened to us. If you saw a Chinese man and he came through the door and said his name was Paul Smith, automatically you would conclude something has happened to him. Right? Because you would expect his name to be Lu Chin. Right? But we have European names and we don't see anything wrong with it. In fact, we will debate it. Oh, you know we know how to get articulate when we promote Eurocentrism and white supremacy. Right? When a woman divorces a man, the first thing she gives back is his name. Because the name ties you to him. If we are free people, why do we still continue to carry slave names? Names that identified us as property. You do know that the slave name wasn't a name designed to show your humanity. The reason why we had slave names is because if another slave master saw us, he said, oh, that's Master Johnson boy. So he belonged to the Johnson plantation. It didn't mean that you were in the Johnson family. You were property. I was property. We were property. Like a chicken, right? Or a cow. We were property. So if we are free today, why do we still cling to slave names? If you're from Spain, you speak what? If you're from France, you speak what? If you're from China, you speak what? If you're from Japan, you speak what? If you're from Italy, you speak what? If you're from Germany, you speak what? If you're from England, you speak what? Who from England is? How then do we speak English? Again, bearing witness that something has happened to us. We've been stripped of our name, our language, our culture. We have a European culture, and we promote it. You know, March 17th, you can put them all green. St. Patrick's Day. Right? We celebrate European holidays, but they don't celebrate Kwanzaa. I know you're going to go in your back pocket and pull out a good white man and say, he celebrate Kwanzaa. We celebrate European holidays. In some states, they said they wasn't even going to recognize Martin Luther King's birthday as a holiday. Here's a day off work with pay. And folks said they didn't want to celebrate Martin Luther King's birthday. How do we move this? Go to the next slide. Racism. We have to deal with racism. You know, black folk, we come from a culture that we don't like to talk about race. And the reason why we don't like to talk about race is because we don't want to offend white folks. So much so that every time something happens in our community, we water it down to appease white folks. Trayvon Martin got shot. The Negro said, it ain't about race though. It is about race. When Amadou Diallo was shot 41 times, the Negro said it ain't about race. When is it about race? The reason why we take these positions is because we want acceptance. And when you're strong and black, somebody black will feel so uncomfortable. So I don't want you to feel uncomfortable, even though I believe and know that you are strong and black. I want to break down the concept of racism. You know, we'll say, well, a black person can be as racist as white folks. And I don't care what color a man is. I don't care if a man is black, brown, red, purple, green, or orange. I just deal with people as people. And you lying. Because if you see a green man, you're going to run. Right? You're not going to get a green man a chance to show that he's a good man. You're going to run. Because logically, you know there's no such thing as a green man. Racism, according to Judith H. Katz, who is a white woman. She said racism equals prejudice plus power. Prejudice plus power. The implication is there that if you don't have power, you can't be racist. I'm going to let that marinate. If you don't have power, you can't be racist. And we are not even prejudiced, because prejudice means to judge before the fact, or prejudge. We're judging after 400 years of slavery, suffering, and death. So we're not even prejudiced. If you pinch a baby, a small child that can't talk, the baby can't go tell mama or daddy that you pinched him. But every time you come around that child, it's going to run from you or start crying. Because they're going to associate you with their pain. If you kick a dog, the dog, the next time you see you, is going to run from you or even bite you. Because they're going to associate you with their pain. I'm going to ask the question, is the baby prejudiced? Is the dog prejudiced? You can talk. You know we come from the black tradition.
No, it's not prejudiced because that's a reactive stance. It's not a proactive approach to the situation. The judgment was placed on as a reaction to some other action as opposed to a prejudge, which is a disposition before the action.
Yeah, so let's give him a black hand. So we are responding to racism. Does that make sense? We're not racist. But white supremacy is smart. White supremacy is sophisticated and wise. So black people have this good, loving heart. So white supremacy will tell you and me that you shouldn't hate anyone. Hate is wrong. And you shouldn't look at the past. Because if you keep looking back, you can't move forward. Right? I'm the only one that ever heard that. But the Jews say, remember the Holocaust. Your babies and my babies, and you and I can go to school and learn about what happened to Jews on another continent. Didn't even take place in the United States of America. Took place on another continent. And we can learn about that. It's all right. But when you talk about what happened to your own great-great-grandmother, you don't supposed to talk about that. And people make you feel like there's something wrong with talking about the black Holocaust. The things that ill affect black people that we don't even know. If you ask black people in America to talk to me about black history, but you can't mention Martin Luther King, you can't mention slavery, you can't mention Barack Obama, you can't mention Rosa Parks or Harriet Tubman, come on, you can hear the crickets. We come from a group of people that lack knowledge of self. And if you don't have self-knowledge, you can't develop unity. You can't unite when you don't know each other. So we got to develop knowledge that will lead to love, that will lead to unity, that will lead to power in unity. So racism equals prejudice plus power. According to Dr. Frances Cress Wilson, she said that racism/white supremacy affects every sphere of people's endeavor: economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. Black people spend over $1.1 trillion annually. But do we affect anyone economically? No. You can't go to Chinatown and see no Leroy's Chicken and Waffles. Right? You can't go to Chinatown and see a barber shop and the brothers hanging out in the barber shop in Chinatown. So we don't discriminate or ill affect people in economics. We don't affect people in education. Because we don't even know ourselves. We don't even know our history. So we don't affect people in education. But we are affected by somebody else's agenda. We know all about Europe. We know all about white history. If I begin to speak something from Swahili or Arabic, you know, we make an African joke. Oh, we thinking Watarazi. Mutombo, you know, you get to make black jokes, right? But if I begin to speak French or Spanish or Portuguese, you say, oh, he deep. He bilingual. Oh, don't let me speak some Chinese. I really have arrived. You know how we get real bourgeoisie and we get white people with black skin. So we don't affect people in entertainment. There's always somebody behind the scene making more money than we make. We don't affect people in labor. In fact, we're unemployed in most instances. We don't affect people in law. And they made laws that ill affect black people, the crack cocaine law, 100-to-1 ratio. How many people are familiar with crack cocaine law? So we can't be racist. That's my point. That's what I'm trying to emphasize. We can't be racist. When you take a strong black position, that doesn't mean you are racist. That means you are intelligent. The so-called American Negro is the only one in the world that doesn't know his self-interest. Why would you debate somebody saying you're great? What mindset would you be functioning from to try to challenge somebody saying you're great? Does that make sense? That shows that something is wrong with us. Politics. 43 black politicians in the Congressional Black Caucus. You know we're not influencing anything on the political sphere. Barack Obama, Barack Hussein Obama, President Barack Obama. He goes, speaks to the Jews, addresses Jewish issues, right? Goes, speaks to the gays. I don't know the LGB, I don't know whatever it is. DLT, you know what I'm talking about. When he go talk to the gay community, he addresses their issues. Don't ask, don't tell. When he goes to the Hispanic, he addresses their issues, right? But black people who voted for him, 97% of black people voted for him, guess what he says? I'm not the black president, I'm the president of the United States of America. I'm the president of everybody. But he won't say that to the Jews. When he goes and meets with AIPAC, American Israeli Public Affairs Committee, he wears a yarmulke on his head. Right or wrong? So we don't affect anybody in politics. Religion. You know we don't affect anyone in religion. In fact, we are victims of a Eurocentric religion. Let me break it down for you, because I know it's not my church. We receive a white, blonde-haired, blue-eyed man hanging on 2 popsicle sticks with a diaper on as our Savior, right? And then they say when you see the Son, you see the Father, because the Father is in the Son and the Son is in the Father. So if the Son is white, logically we have to conclude that the Father is what? So if the Father is white, which is God, what's the opposite of God?
Devil.
The devil. So if God is white, what color is the devil? Black, because they're the opposite. So subconsciously, because Dr. Francis Cress Wilson said the brain operates off logic circuits. So even if you say, I don't believe that, your brain internalizes it. So when you see white folk, you say, they're divine in your mind, even though you might not say it verbally. When you see black people with hair like white people, you say you got good hair. When you see black people with eyes like white folks, you say you got pretty eyes. So if they got pretty eyes, then you don't have to say it. And you internalize it, you got ugly eyes. And if they got good hair, you have bad hair. You putting a moral quality to hair. So, sex and war, you know, HIV, AIDS, they came from green woman. That's what they tell us. Kwame Ture said, by racism we mean the predication of decisions and policies on the consideration of race for the purpose of subordinating a racial group and maintaining control over that group. Black people don't have any desire to subordinate any other group. Black people find the most militant, revolutionary, progressive black organization. They just want self-determination. Kujichagulia. You can't read in their constitution, yeah, we're going to lock all the whites up. Right? So blacks are not racist. Blacks respond to racism. Black sheep. You know the black sheep. Your Uncle Junebug always get locked up. Junebug always get locked up. Junebug, you know when you're in jail, either he a Muslim or he the reverend. You know the whole Bible, right? Junebug come home smart, but then when he get out, start back smoking crack. And they say he the black sheep of the family. Black, you know, in American society, black is associated with negativity. This thing skipping. Devil food cake, the chocolate cake. Angel food cake, the white cake. The devil is black, the angel is white. And I know somebody's old, sophisticated bourgeoisie, Mr. Negro, can say, you looking too deep into that. You wear white to a wedding and black to a funeral. So you happy, you put on white. Sad, gloomy, dark, black. This is fact in America. Indeed, and throughout the world. Good hair. You know that's what Billy D. Williams is known for? He got that good hair. My aunt, the only one said he got that good hair. Okay, Billy D. Williams had that good hair. Or had good hair. Pretty eyes. Right? If the sun is white, what color is the father? The brain operates off logic, sir. We internalize that. But the Bible clearly states that Jesus had hair like lamb's wool and feet like brass burned in an oven. Did that man look like he got feet? Look like brass burned in an oven? Huh? So if he had hair like lamb's wool and feet like brass burned in the oven, then he would be a black man. So in 2012, if you saw Jesus, you know, he would be riding on a donkey, because 2012. Right? He never had some sandals on, you know, it's 2012. If you saw Jesus riding up Georgia Avenue in old school, listening to 2 Chainz, I'm riding around and I'm getting it. I'm riding around and I'm getting it. It's mine, I spent it. You say, I don't believe that no Jesus. Right? Because he ain't white. We argue everything that's black. We believe everything that's white. How did white people become the white Jews become the chosen people of God? You get to break it down. Now, see what had happened was they was in Egypt under Pharaoh, and then they left. That's not true. Do you think some white Jews were in black African Egypt for 400 years and then left out and then went to Germany and Poland and Russia and now control the world? And we believe that. Dr. Kenneth Clark conducted a doll test. In a doll test, psychologists Kenneth and Mamie Clark used 4 plastic diaper-clad dolls identical except for color, and asked the children, asked the young children, which doll was pretty. And you know, naturally, in a Eurocentric society, the black children said the white dolls. And you know, we said that was back then in 1955. Things we live in a post-racial society. Well, there was a young sister in New York that did it later. And the conclusion was the same, that we've internalized self-hatred. We hate ourselves. So we have to go through a process of reclaiming ourselves. But in order to go through that process, you have to first admit that you don't know. But black people in America, we are just, you know, usually when you're arrogant, you got like 2 PhDs, you got a PhD in statistics, it's like, he's smart, he knows calculus, he's just deep, right? But the Negro, he don't know nothing. He follows Lil Wayne and will argue you down on issues. You never met nobody like that? Every time you come with something black, they say, I ain't with all that black stuff. If you black, and you're not with that black stuff, what are you with?
White stuff.
Brother said he's back with that white stuff. Can you imagine a cat hanging around dogs, then another cat come around, and then the cat say, I ain't with all that cat stuff, and go hang with the dogs. But that's how we are. We argue against our own self-interest. How many people here study anthropology? Brother Kevin, the anthropologist. Mary Leakey, Louis Leakey, and Richard Leakey went into Africa looking for the origin of man. And they found the bones of a man 1,750,000 years old. And they called him Zinjanthropus. Zinj means black. Now they're not going to say black man, because then you might get some pride and some self-esteem and feel like you can run something. So they give you a Latin or Greek term that you say, I can't understand that stuff. And I ain't with all that. It's born, technical, right? Black man. Then they found the bones of another man. Then they found the bones of a woman 3.2 million years old. And they called her Lucy. Because they would listen to a Beatles song, Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. Why don't they teach us this in school? That the black man and the black woman are the mothers and fathers of art, architecture, astronomy, customs, culture, civilization, math, music, morality, science, spirituality, philosophy, government, law, and order. Why don't they teach us this? Because if we learn this in school, then we'll develop a mentality to say, as a black person, I can do anything. And that would change our view of one another. It's hard to disrespect a black woman if you see her as the mother of civilization. It's hard to disrespect a black woman if you see her as a queen. Right? And it's hard to disrespect a black man if you see him as a king. But in this society, we've been stripped of the knowledge of ourselves. You say, well, I don't believe in that. The Bible says that God created man in his image and likeness. If man is created in the image and likeness of God, and we know that the first man was black, do you know what your image is? If you look in the mirror, that's not you. In the mirror, that's an image of you. The Quran says that Allah created Adam out of black mud. Well, if he was made out of black mud, how he come up a white boy? If he was made out of black mud, logically we can conclude that he was what? Black. And then he's called Khalifa, the vicegerent, the successor, he who takes the place of another who has perished or died. The black man and the black woman are divine. We need to understand that. We need to know that. We need to walk with that in our spirits. We can do more than just sing and dunk and rap. I'm riding around like that song. Those piles of ruins which you see in that narrow valley watered by the Nile are the remains of opulent cities, the pride of the ancient kingdom of Ethiopia. There a people now forgotten, discovered, while others were yet barbarians. the elements of the arts and sciences. A race of men now rejected from society for their sable skin and frizzled hair, founded on the study of the laws of nature, those civil and, I don't know, this covered up systems which still govern the universe. Count Baldwin. He wrote a book called The Ruin of Empires. He was white, but you know, we ain't gonna believe unless somebody white said it. Because you know, when you quote something and it's strong and it's black, you know, we're gonna say, where you get that from? Which means I need to quote a white man. When you say, where you get that from? Show me some proof. When I say, well, Bill said, you say, okay, I believe. Finger must be heavy. I might can play the piano. Okay. Kemet, land of the blacks. The Greeks called it Aegyptus. The Romans called it Egyptus. The British called it Egypt and dropped the us. And they tell us that the Jews were in bondage, they built the pyramids, right? Why they ain't build none in Israel? Do slaves build with such mathematical precision? No. You ever seen a happy slave? We the only ones like that. Oh, happy go lucky slave. Black people the only ones like that. So slaves don't build with such precision. Kemet, the original name of Egypt. You know, people came in and conquered. You had the Hyksos, the Assyrians, the Persians, the Greeks, the Romans, the Arabs. Everybody came in, so the complexion got lighter and lighter and lighter. But the original people there built civilization. And so when we had strong scholars, Dr. Yusef Ben Jacqueline, Dr. John Henry Clark, Dr. Leonard Jeffries, and others, scholarship, Dr.